Everyone. I'm excited because we have another retreat speaker here today and a new face that I have not interviewed before and has never been to our retreat before. Or have you been to a retreat? I didn't even ask you that, but I know you've not been as a speaker.
Yes, right. Yeah, I was at the retreat last year, but I wasn't a speaker last year.
Okay, so I'm excited. You're coming back as a speaker for the first time. And so you have attended our retreat. And so I'm excited that you're coming here to share with us. And today's topic, I'm really, really excited about. And so it's parenting with trauma, parenting traumatized children. I'm like, oh, wow, I'm looking forward to hearing that. I don't think we've ever talked about parenting with trauma and how that impacts us as parents and everything. So I think that's going to be really important for the ladies coming to a retreat to be able to understand how going through trauma impacts your parenting. And so that way you can work with it and be wonderful parents that you desire to be, or a wonderful parent. But I'm referring to more than one woman. So anyway, Jess, why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure. So my name is Jess Frank. I'm a counselor at Fieldstone Counseling. We have our in-person counseling near Cleveland, Ohio is where where our in-person is. And then we do remote all around the country, all around the world. And I mostly see girls, teens, and women, many of whom have experienced abuse and coercive control, and also girls, teens, and women that are neurodivergent.
Oh, wow. That's really awesome. I'm like, wow, I am interested. I'm like, oh, I have so many questions. I want to have a good conversation with you. But today we're going to be talking about parenting with trauma. And so I'm looking forward to that. And so I guess we'll just get started from the very beginning. And that is, how does trauma impact our ability to parent? I wouldn't say our ability. Maybe that's a wrong word to say. I feel like that sounds shaming. Sorry. I just want to back up because I wrote that and I'm like, wait, I guess my question would not be our ability to parent, but how does it impact us as parents?
Mhm. Yeah, so many different ways, and just kind of starting off with like a definition of coercive control and trauma. When we're talking about coercive control, we're talking about men who use power and control to achieve compliance, to intimidate, to humiliate, exploit, dominate. And really in day-to-day life, this is a captivity crime, a type of domestic terrorism, which degrades women, beautiful daughters of the Lord, and it degrades the image of the Lord that dwells in them as well. And trauma is a normal response to abnormal events, pattern of interactions. And so when we think about it that way, obviously we can see how it's going to impact us in so many different ways through our spirit, our body, our mind, how we see and interact with the whole world around us. So it just makes sense that it would be very difficult to parent coming from a context like that. One of the things that it does is it can cause the brain to have an overactive fear center. We can struggle to emotionally regulate, make choices from a place of suffering that we might not like or might not necessarily align with our values, which I think, Lauren, is maybe what you were kind of getting at with the ability part, because that can be tough. And then even trusting ourselves as parents when we come from that, we experience coercive control, and we are told that we are wrong and bad, either directly or indirectly through how we're treated. And so it's really hard to trust the decisions that we make as parents. A lot of times, actually, I sit with women who come in and they say, oh my goodness, I've been a terrible parent this past week or past 2 weeks. And then, I'll ask them, what makes you say that? And then often I'll get a response of, just a list of garden variety struggles everybody has as a parent. And so, being able to normalize that parenting is hard, and that it also alters our perception on the way that we parent and how we're doing as a parent, because we have been psychologically manipulated.
Mm. Wow. Wow. I'm just going to say everything you're saying. I'm just sitting here listening to it. And I'm like, that is so true. It's really hard when we've been told. A lot of times women that have been through abuse also have been abused in their parenting. And so they have been very controlled and been told maybe they're a bad mother by their partner, or told they're inadequate as a mother. And it's all about control. So that area of their life's controlled too. So it's really hard to feel confident as a parent in the choices that you're making, or confident in even correcting your children that you're doing the right thing, because it just maybe sometimes correction triggers you and how you were micromanaged and controlled. And so, wow, I'm
Absolutely.
just like, yeah, this is
Mhm.
all really good. What she's saying, I'm like, I 100% agree with her. That's really good and very important. And then also, we want to talk a little bit too, throw the other dynamic in before we get
Mhm.
into what you'll be talking about at the retreat
Mhm.
is coercive control impacts children. So not
Mhm.
only does it impact the mother, it impacts children who witnessed it. So can we
Mhm.
talk a little bit about that and how it impacts them?
Yeah. And just kind of a trigger warning of sorts, going into this, that when we hear things about the impacts of coercive control in children, that can be really hard. So if you're listening to this and you need to maybe step away, take a deep breath, definitely go ahead and do that. Um, so really it affects children in the ways that we discussed above, and it can be particularly devastating because when we're talking about a father coercively controlling in his home, this is the only template that children have. And so as children, we look at our parents as doing what is good and right, and that these are models of how we're supposed to act or how life is supposed to be. And so when we get a faulty template, that can be devastating to a developing brain. And so it and in this, I just wanted to share that there's a lot of hope and healing in this place, that Psalm 34:18 says that the Lord is near to the brokenhearted and saves the crushed in spirit. And he also created our brains to be neuroplastic. So when we think about ourselves, when we think about our little ones, the women in our lives that we are coming alongside, that there's a lot of hope for redemption in those different places, through getting help, through going to the Lord in this. And, going back to the kids, it, like with mom, this impacts their whole being, the way that they see and experience God, see and experience the world around them, and how they learn to anchor their identity. So it's really important to be able to intercede in that place, to be able to speak truth to kids, be able to show them who they really are, and be able to treat them in a way to help them understand the way that God loves them, and
Mhm.
reflecting that well.
Yes. Oh, wow. I loved everything you shared there too. And just that the brain is able to
Mhm.
heal and grow and recover from trauma. And there is beauty ahead. And that's what we'll be talking about at our retreat, is giving the women a hope for redemption in their lives, that God is our redeemer. He's the redeemer not only for us, but he's also the redeemer for our children too. And that's hard sometimes to remember, is that, just as much as God is working this for good in our lives, he's working this for good in our children's lives. And he's for them and fighting for them, and loves them more than we love them. And so I think I love what you said, because it's important to keep those things in mind, and because it's out of our control, really. But I'm excited because you're coming to the retreat to give us hope.
Thanks.
And so you'll be talking to us about working this. So can you tell us a little bit about what you'll be talking about at the retreat with parenting with trauma?
Absolutely. Yeah. And so I have done similar sessions like this before, and I always try to pack in as much as I possibly can because I just want to give the women everything that I've learned and that I know at this point, being a survivor myself as well. And so I've interacted with a lot of these concepts personally. But some of the things that we're going to talk about are our theologies of suffering, embodiment, the brain and how that's affected, different biblical concepts related to trauma. And then really the big pieces of parenting as a trauma survivor, because when we are parenting children that have been in a coercively controlled environment, that naturally is going to lend to we're trauma survivors ourselves. And so it does bring up particular challenges and a particular set of strategies and healing, a healing path for us to take. And so, looking at our identities, our healing journey, how our healing impacts our parenting, our self stewardship. We had at our annual retreat, Eliza Huey, who is a biblical counselor. She came and spoke to us, and something that she said really was so impactful. She talked about how the 4 times where we are told to love others as we love ourselves, every single time it notes as ourselves. And I knew it said that biblically, but I didn't realize every single one of those 4 times it says as ourselves. And so I really think that's important to emphasize for victims and survivors, that it is good and right to take care of us,
Mhm.
our emotions, our spirits, our bodies. All of that is really important. Um, Looking what does wholeness look like, how can we work towards wholeness, what does good help look like, because it's really important that the help that we engage in is good and healthy help.
Mm.
And then in parenting children who are trauma survivors, looking at identity as well, like we talked about, treating children in a way that helps them know their goodness and the way that God sees them and experiences them with love, balancing structure and nurture. Which is a really important pillar of parenting, growing their emotional intelligence. And we'll spend a considerable amount of time looking at Emma Katz's research and recommendations. She wrote a book about mothers and children in coercive control and studied what was beneficial. And, like I shared, I'm a survivor myself, and I'm going to try not to, to tear up here, but, my mother is a master of resistance. And resistance is when mothers who are in a coercively controlling environment, they fight for the good and well-being for their children, despite what the coercive control is doing in their home.
Mm.
And to me, that is a huge, huge source of hope and healing for women, because this is something that can be done in that environment or out of it. That there are always things that we can do to be able to fight for the well-being of our kids, considering what is safe to do, of course. And always keeping that in mind. But there are things that are out of our control, and there are also things that we can do.
Wow. Wow, I love that, and I love how you just highlighted out how women will still fight for the good in their children, good for their children no matter what they're going through, and, I think that's a beautiful thing about survivors is that they are so so much fighting for their children. So many women I meet, that's just their heart, and what's crying out is just to walk alongside their children and help them overcome. But I think it's important, like you mentioned, to also take care of ourselves. I
Mhm.
really appreciate you pointing that out, because we have found that as women heal, it impacts your parenting. And that is very crucial if you want to have a peaceful home, is to focus on your healing too, and don't neglect that. So I'm really excited for you sharing this at the retreat. I'm like, I want to attend this. Like, I need this session. I
Awesome.
need to continue to grow and learn about parenting, because it's a journey. I feel like as you're overcoming the impacts, of course, of control and parenting, it takes a while. And so
Yes.
I'm excited for women to come into, maybe they're starting this the first time, and maybe they've been out for a while, and they're just like, oh, I need some refreshers and reminders of just how to walk alongside my children and love them well, and look at all the ways it impacted me. So thank you so much for sharing. And is there anything else that you wanted to add?
I'm just really looking forward to seeing all of the women at the retreat. Last year when I went, and I was just able to kind of go to the sessions and spend time with the women there. It was such a life-giving environment. So if you're out there listening, and if you're on the fence about going, or you're kind of considering it, I would encourage you to continue continue considering it, and seeing if there's a way that you're able to get there. We would love to see you there.
Yes, absolutely. And right now too, we are in a scholarship campaign, and I love that about our retreat is that we send women on a scholarship that are newly coming out of abuse and don't have the finances to be able to go because of the impacts of abuse. And so right now we're in the process of raising a campaign of raising $65,000 to scholarship 100 women to the retreat. And so far we've raised just a little over 26,000. So I'm excited because we just recently had some generous donors partner with us, and that number is going up. And so we invite you to partner alongside us and to be able to send women to this retreat. $650 covers the scholarship of one woman. So prayerfully consider how you can support another woman that is coming out of abuse and needing support. So we just want to thank you so much for being here, Jess. And I'm so excited to see you at the retreat and looking forward to meeting you and hearing your session. And thank you for everybody who joined in. And Jess is on Facebook too, right? If people
Yes,
want
I
to find
am.
you. Okay, so if you're watching this and you want to comment later, Jess can jump in the comments. And then, Jess, if somebody wanted to look you up online, where would they find you?
Yeah, so I am on Fieldstone Counseling's website. If there's somebody who is looking for counseling, we do come alongside domestic violence, coercive control, abuse survivors, and have several of us who have been specifically trained in that. So you can find me there. I'm on Facebook. I don't have too much else kind of going on it at this point. But yeah, you can find me there.
And is it fieldstonecounseling.org or .com?
.org. Mhm.
All right. I have dropped it in the comments here for those who are, hopefully that's correct. And you're watching and you want to be able to connect with her. And then it's not too late to sign up for the retreat. We have actually extended the registration date by 1 week. So the registration ends April 14th. So it's still coming up very soon. We are literally, today is the 14th. So we are exactly 1 month away from the close of registration for the retreat. So don't delay signing up. We are excited to welcome Jess and numerous other speakers as well. So thank you, everybody, for tuned in, and I hope y'all guys have a wonderful day. See ya.